Hello everybody, I'm Angie Ridley with Complete Realty, servicing Mid-Michigan's real estate needs. Let's talk real estate. Let's talk about loans today. Disclaimer, not a lender, don't want to be a lender. I'm only going to talk to you about what I see when I'm writing purchase agreements and when I'm talking to clients about zero down payment programs. Let's talk about Veterans Administration, VA, and Rural Development, RD. Okay, so a lender says, yes, these are zero down payment programs, and I get a lot of clients that, as far as they're concerned, they have to come to the table with nothing. Okay, well, on down payment is the amount that you need to put down, like if you put a down payment on a car, down payment on a house. Like if you went FHA, you'd have to put 3.5, 5, 10. If you went conventional, 3, 5, 10, 20, whatever. These programs say you don't have to put a down payment down. However, on the flip side, there are always closing costs. Closing costs can consist of an appraisal, the title fees, the mortgage fees, all the fees involved to make the transaction happen. Seller has their own closing costs, buyer has their own closing costs. I want to talk about buyer closing costs. So let's say the buyer has closing costs of $4,500. I'm just pulling a number out of a hat right now. We never know what closing costs are going to be because all lenders are different, all situations are different. So I'm just using a round figure of $4,500. A lot of buyers will come to write the purchase agreement and say, I want the seller to pay for my closing costs. Okay, but remember, the seller can always say no. Just because you've been approved for a zero down type mortgage doesn't mean the seller is going to say, okay, I'll pay for all their closing costs too. Right now, there's a very fine line in the sellers being able to sell their houses for what they owe on their houses to move as well. So keeping that in mind, the margin that the sellers can pay for anything is very thin these days. So let's go back to that $4,500 figure. So let's say the buyer says, I'd like for the seller to pay my closing costs, $4,500. The seller can say, no, I'll pay half, or I'll pay X dollar amount. So it's really up to the seller to confirm that. Why it does happen in a lot of cases, there are just some situations that it won't. So let's talk about the same $4,500 closing fee on a house that's $90,000 versus one that's $40,000. If you're buying a $90,000 house and you ask the seller to pay your closing costs of $4,500, most banks and lenders will allow 6%. The seller can pay up to 6% of the closing costs. So as long as you're within that 6%, you're okay. So if you go to the $40,000 house and you said, like, the seller to pay up to 6% of my closing costs, that's never going to happen because that figure is $2,400 and your figure is $45 for your closing costs, so you'll still have to come to the table with a couple grand or more. So these are just things I want you to think about when you're out there getting ready to purchase a home, because it's not always cut and dry that the seller will pay closing costs up front. It's nice if the realtor or the real estate agent would note it in the multiple listing system, but that don't always happen. Sometimes it's just a negotiating tool that we don't know who's going to do what till we're at the table. Anyways, I hope I explained that well. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to give me a call, 810-744-4600. Have a great day.